Hello, and welcome to another Spacetime Rewind. Today we are going to be talking about our top 10th Doctor moments, and once again, I'm here with my companion, Nolan Dean.
Hey, buddy. Great to be back here, and I'm really excited for this one because when a lot of new fans think of Doctor Who, they think of David Tennant, and he's got a lot of moments to go through. And if we can get it to a top five, I'm going to consider that a big achievement.
Yeah, I don't think that we had any crossover with the same moments this week because, again, he had much more show to go through and stuff to pick. And I love David Tennant. He's awesome. He's Tom's favorite Doctor and a lot of people's favorite Doctor. I'm a little partial to 11 myself, so I'm looking forward to that. But, of course, I love Tennant. Like you said, a lot of people consider him like the Doctor. So I guess let's just get right into this. Did you want to start with your number five?
Sure. My number five comes from an early episode in the season, and it revolves around sort of a television thing where everyone's kind of going blank because of it. And there's this one really annoying character in the episode who just loves to make sure his voice is heard. And I think a good thing about David Tennant is that before this, I think more people associated him with his role in Goblet of Fire. So they knew he could go scary if he wanted to. And this guy just tells him to like stop talking because you're in my house and I'm talking. And then David Tennant just stands up in one of the best moments ever. And he's just like, and I'm not listening. And that moment was just, it both scared me and I was like, that's awesome. That's the Doctor going in a new direction. And I already love David Tennant now.
Yeah, he's great. And you're talking about the episode with the wire and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy was a jerk in that scene for sure. And it's funny that you picked this one because my choice is also him putting someone in their place. So it's interesting that we both went there with that. Mine was a character who I really liked, Harriet, and we saw her kind of rise through the ranks. And at this point, she's actually the prime minister, and she makes a move that the Doctor doesn't like. She ends up destroying the Sycorax, who I'm a big fan of. I got my Sycorax right there, in the Christmas Invasion, which was his first episode. And Tennant disagreed with that decision, and rightly so, in my opinion. And he gives this great speech to her about how he could take down her government with just one word. And then he's like, no, it would be 6 words. And she gets angry and she walks away. And he says to her assistant, don't you think she looks tired? And it was just perfect. That's all he had to say. Just like he said, everything kind of like fell apart for her after he did that. And I thought it was just like a really calculated move. And again, seeing like a different side of the Doctor that I don't think we necessarily would have seen with Christopher Eccleston.
Yeah, I haven't seen the Christmas Invasion as recently as I wanted to, but I do remember that moment. And that goes to show with a lot of things Doctor Who does is that no matter what people think about the show, it always pokes fun at politics. I mean, even later on in Tennant's run, they make the Master the Prime Minister, which is a clear dig at Tony Blair. And I guess you could see Harriet maybe as like a dig at Margaret Thatcher, but that's also a really cool thing for him to put her in her place.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting, too, to take this character who they did make us like so much, and then to show that, like, when people are put into difficult positions, sometimes they make decisions that are not good decisions because of all the pressure on them. And it showed us that with Harriet, because I don't think that she was a bad person. I just think that she was stressed out and put into a predicament that most of us wouldn't ever have to even fathom dealing with. And she thought she was making a good decision, but obviously us as an audience and the Doctor disagree. So I thought it was interesting. What was your number 4?
My number 4 is kind of a whole episode, not really one particular moment. Now, I always love when Doctor Who can go kind of scary, and this particular episode involving a girl named Chloe Webber, who's a bit like an introvert, and she draws people on her street and they start disappearing. First of all, that's just such a great concept. I mean, I could see that in like a Neil Gaiman fairy tale story or something like that. But the way the Doctor goes about handling this is that it's not that he wants to stop her. He kind of wants to save her from her own demons. And Chloe Webber's like really creepy. Like she could easily be a really scary like child villain, but the show didn't go in that direction, and they showed that no matter what, the Doctor will always try and save somebody, no matter what the cost is, and even if it's like a small contained threat, like in that episode.
Yeah, that was the drawing one, right?
Yes.
I love that they had a scene that like the monster is literally just a scribble in that. I feel like that's the type of thing that somebody would write it and it would be in a book or a script and they'd be like, how are we even going to make this happen? But I thought they pulled it off. I think it was really interesting to watch, and definitely one of the episodes that's very different compared to the rest of the show at the time.
Yeah. What was your number 4?
Um, the death of River Song, kind of death. It was beautiful introducing the character this way, because I thought she was just really interesting throughout her entire run so far on the show. I'm hoping to see her again because she's one of my favorite characters. But to see the end of her story first, there's just something really poetic about it later as you get more information. And when you watch the story from the perspective of River, like it will break your heart. And it's just great the way they introduced her, and she obviously knows so much about him, and for once the Doctor is the person who doesn't have control and doesn't know every single thing that's going on. And for her to make the decision to kind of sacrifice herself and get imported into the library is really sad and beautiful, because basically she says, like, he says time can be rewritten, we can save you, you know, and she says, no, you can't do that because I don't want to give up any of the moments that we already have. Everything will change. Like, I'll never get to meet you, and I wouldn't take back one single moment. And something just touches my heart about River. It's a beautiful story, and both a beautiful beginning and ending at the same time. I thought it was really unique.
Yeah, River Song, I think, was one of those characters that sort of led us on a path of getting a female master, and then now Jodie Whittaker is the Doctor, and that shows because she's kind of got all the quirks of the Doctor, but she's clearly a very different character than the Doctor now. Whereas, like you said, the Doctor will try and do anything he can to make everything all right. River takes it in a different way, where she knows she has to make a difficult choice, and that gives them a really kind of I want to say like on the line relationship. Like they're both two sides of the same coin, and River's one of those characters where, depending on the writer, she could go either way. I've seen her portrayed as a villain, I've seen her portrayed as a hero, and like you said, I keep wanting to see her come back in later episodes.
Yeah, and she's like my mom's hero. She's like a fashion icon to her, and she's such a beautiful woman, and she has this charisma and self-confidence that like I admire so much. I want to be River Song when I grow up. And it's also cool to see the roles kind of reversed and have the Doctor being the one who is the brains behind the operation, and her being the one who's quick on the trigger. Like, she'll get the business actually done. She doesn't shy away from weapons and stuff, and I think it's really neat to have a character like her on a show like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was your number 3?
Now, this is no surprise. Anybody who knows me knows that I love seeing a good villain, and this is a particularly interesting one because at the time Doctor Who was running for the new fans, I don't think a lot of people knew who this character was except old Who fans, and because of social media, we didn't know too much about him, but as soon as we saw the Utopia episode and Derek Jacobi's professor said he was the Master, and like now, like the Doctor, he wants to become young and strong, which kind of shows like the whole progression Doctor Who went through. Like now we have a female Master. Now in this one we have a Master who's kind of like the equivalent of David Tennant, and the first scene where you just see him wake up in the TARDIS and run around screaming like a little child almost is just, there's something so childishly evil about that I love in my villains. And John Sim, like I've said before, with him being the Prime Minister in that season, it's clearly a dig at something like Tony Blair, and the show's been doing something like that for the whole time. And just watching his first scene, I like Missy, but I can't see anybody else than John Sim as the Master. He is my Master.
Yeah, he's really great. I loved all the episodes with John Sim as the Master. I loved later on, of course, with the whole 4 beats repeating and the regeneration and Wilf and stuff. Like everything that John Sim touched on Doctor Who was basically excellent and stood out. He just had such a life to that character. Like he really embodied this evil version to see in a Time Lord. And I always got excited when I knew the Master was coming back. And yeah, I like Missy, but I'm with you. It's never going to touch how I feel about John Sim's portrayal, because what he did with it was really so special. Almost like a Moriarty type performance, like on Sherlock, where it's just so different and so, like, I can't see anybody else doing it the way he does.
And what was your number 3?
I'm going back to the Christmas Invasion for this one. When we first switched over, again, I had a tough time transitioning because this is my first time dealing with a regeneration for a Doctor, and there was this one particular moment in that episode that was so funny and so charming that when he did this, I connected with him instantly, and I knew that we were going to be in good hands and that I was really going to enjoy his version of the Doctor. And that's when he started saying lyrics from The Lion King. And as he's doing this, right before he says, "Oh, no, that's The Lion King," I'm going, wait, that's The Lion King. So it was just really funny to me. His delivery was perfection. That comedic timing in that scene is hilarious. And I think I'm not the only one who was just fell in love with him the moment they did that. It's such a minor thing in the grand scheme of his run on Doctor Who, but it just connected with me so personally at that moment that I had to put it on my list. It was really great.
That to me is the proper way to include a pop culture reference in a sci-fi show.
I just like it because he's kind of like not his full like self. He's still kind of like processing, and I could see him having all this knowledge in his head and think he's saying something that's so profound in the moment, and then being like, I'm just recycling that from pop culture. Sorry, my bad. You know?
Which relates to a lot of fans of the show.
Yeah, it's great.
I think we're on to the second one now. This is another villain that I don't think gets nearly as enough credit as someone like the Master. The episode where he's confronting Davros for the first time. Now, I love the whole concept of Davros because they really take the whole mad scientist angle to a whole different level. And when you see him, he's kind of a bit like Brainiac from DC Comics, if you know what I mean. And just seeing that the Doctor doesn't really want to stop him, he's kind of trying to save Davros from himself. That's another comparison that I can draw between the Doctor and Superman, because that's similar to relationships that he has with his villains. So in a way, maybe you could see the Master as like a Lex Luthor type, and then Davros is like the Brainiac or the General Zod. And they don't just make Davros like a mustache-twirling villain, even though he has fun with it. He does have his own demons and his own pain that he goes through, and seeing the Doctor appeal to that first rather than being like, I'm the hero, I'm going to stop you, that once again says a lot about the character for all the right reasons, not just because he's going to beat somebody in a punching contest.
Yeah, I think Davros is really interesting. Like, you have this character who's literally tearing themselves apart to create something. It's almost like a Frankenstein vibe to it, but on a whole nother level, because he's physically like breaking himself down to make these creations. First of all, his makeup and stuff, really interesting, really cool, super unique. I think the Daleks have the easiest time playing with how are different unique ways that we can take this idea and make it more like they've introduced like Emperor Daleks and stuff like that. But by far Davros, like I'm glad they brought Davros back from Classic Who into New Who, because they updated it really well and took such an interesting idea and ran with it. Like even later on in the show, past David Tennant, we get more information about Davros, and Davros just becomes more interesting the more you find out about his character. So I think that's an awesome choice.
Yeah, for sure. And if they ever do a Doctor Who movie series, I would love to see Ben Kingsley play Davros.
Gosh, that would be crazy. I'm into it. Whew. All right, so my number 2 is the regeneration of the 10th Doctor. The saddest regeneration of all time. I get like a little choked up even thinking about this, because really with 9, you had this kind of like bittersweet moment that we talked about that was really like uplifting at the same time as being sad, because the last note he leaves you with is that it's everyone's fantastic and she's fantastic and he's fantastic. But here we have David Tennant look us in the face as an audience and tell us, like, I don't want to go, are his last words. And really, you don't get more gut-wrenching than that. They've jabbed us later on in the show making references to it, and it just still hurts to even think about today. It was extra sad. And how did it make you feel to watch that?
I think there's a clear difference there with that regeneration, because whenever he's regenerated before, he's always had somebody with him, so he's kind of has to be stronger for them. But you see for the first time when he's alone, he's terrified about changing, and that makes you sympathize with him on a whole new way. And since, like we said at the start of the episode, David Tennant was the Doctor for a lot of new fans, for them to experience their first regeneration and to see it happen, and to show that this character isn't always like at the top of his game with this kind of stuff, it makes him more human. And Tennant just pulls it off so perfectly. And I believe there's a whole behind the scenes video regarding how they shot that and whether they wanted to make it really sad or like really bittersweet. And they ended up going for a nice mix of it in the end. That regeneration's incredible.
Yeah, to me, it's just sad. It breaks my heart. All right, I think we're at the top of our list here.
Well,
wait. Let's start that line over again so we can get rid of that cough.
Sure.
Well, I think we're at the top of our list here, but we did have a little bit of stuff that we couldn't fit on our list, and we wanted to make some honorable mentions. So a couple things I loved from his run: Wilf, Donna. Anything with him and Donna and him and Wilf is definitely on the top of my list. I loved the Doctor's daughter, seeing his actual wife and, of course, one of the classic Doctor's actual daughter working together. And I think that's another one of the companions that got away. And also the Blink video. We have to mention Blink. That's where the Weeping Angels started out. And it was cool to have just this little taste of him in the episode. But he really was like the glue that was tying the whole episode together. And again, Sally Sparrow could go on a list of companions that we wish we could have had. You wanted to throw in real quick as runner-ups?
Well, you covered a lot of mine there, but I do want to throw in the Agatha Christie episode. I believe Donna's also in that as well. You guys know I'm a huge reader, and seeing episodes where they bring in like classic writers really just makes my inner bookworm happy. And I believe that episode also introduced us to Felicity Jones, who we know has gone on to do bigger things now, and she's playing sort of like an evil Agatha Christie villainous type in this story. And that one is also, it's also got Donna. You see more of their like back and forth bantering with each other, and it's just really fun because that's like if Doctor Who did an Agatha Christie story, and it's kind of meta and everything in its way, and it shows you that the writers really have a passion for storytelling.
Nice, yeah, that's definitely a good choice. All right, the time has come. What is your number one David Tennant Doctor Who moment?
I feel like I have to apologize in advance for this because I might make you cry, but it is part of the regeneration thing and also kind of not, but it's the same thing where you feel like you have to move on. You guys know I used to loathe Rose Tyler. I used to find her so annoying, but on the rewatch, I really understood where they were going for with the character, because Rose and the Doctor bring out the best of each other, and at that time they needed each other more than anything. And just the last moment Rose Tyler sees the Doctor, and you think he's finally going to say those words, "I love you." He just says, "Rose Tyler, I," and then his hologram vanishes, and I'm pretty sure the whole world at that moment just screamed "no" in unison. And that's the one that's always stuck with me ever since. Even when I didn't like Rose Tyler as a character, that moment was really poignant and a good whole friendship to leave off on.
Yeah, I think that that's a great choice. That's just plain good writing, man, to leave it like just there and leave you wanting to hear the end of the sentence. It puts you like in Rose Tyler's shoes. Like you want to hear it as much as she does, and when you don't, like that's it. That's all you get. You know, she can assume what he was going to say, but she's never going to get those words from him, and that's sad. It's there's no other word for it. It's hugely sad.
So what was I gotta know what your number one was?
Okay, so I feel like this might be a controversial choice to put this above all the other things on the list, but I had to choose what hit me personally. These lists are about us as fans and what our personal favorite moments are. And for me, there was only one choice. I wrote this one first, and then I wrote the rest of the list around it. The Girl in the Fireplace is a gorgeous episode. I love everything about that episode. It has all the, it hits like a bunch of notes that I like. There's a horse that's like a companion friend. I love the way the monsters look and are. It's just so different, and I love it. But the biggest scene for me and what hit me the most personally is when the doctor goes back to see her and she's already passed away, and she leaves him this letter, and he kind of takes this private moment alone and he reads the letter from her, and she towards the end of her life realized that he was never coming back. And to have this moment with the doctor who's always so excellent at figuring things out and getting what he wants, for him to not get what he wants and for it to be done, you know? And it's really sad. And I love how they just kind of had no dialogue after he read the letter. It was like a long moment of silence with music, because to him it was that crushing of a moment. You know, he really had this beautiful relationship with Renette, Madame de Pompadour, and they even had like a mind meld moment where they saw into each other's heads and each other's souls, basically. And I don't think he ever had that again with another human. It was gorgeous, and again, beautiful writing and very sad, and it encapsulates everything that I really love about his run on Doctor Who. Like, this is the stuff on Doctor Who that makes me such a fan of the show.
I think I'm going to go rewatch that episode right after, because it does have one of the best pre-title sequence scenes from any Doctor Who episode, where she's just yelling into the fireplace and you see that desperation in her eyes. That's a damn good episode, buddy.
Yeah, it is, and I feel like it's almost a predecessor to what they did with Eleven and Amy Pond, because he wasn't there for her whole life, but he was there for her whole life. Like, he kept popping up, and even though it wasn't as much time for him as it was for her, like, you're seeing this entire woman's lifespan, and she's an influential and important woman, and he is an influential and important part of her life. So to see him making an impact on this character all throughout her life since she's a child until her death is massive, and it's gorgeous. You should go watch that episode. It's really good.
I think I'm going to do that right after I finish recording this. I believe last week you put a thing up, and you put up...
So yeah, all in all, Tennant was another excellent Doctor, completely different vibe than either the Doctor that came before him and after him. But that's the great thing about this show, is that you get so many different flavors of this same character. It's got to be one of the most complex and interesting characters of all time. And we love David Tennant. Did you have any final words about his Doctor?
I didn't want him to go.
Yeah, no one did. All right, so once again, the next thing that we're going to be covering is Matt Smith, the 11th Doctor's top moments, coming to you probably next Friday, a week from this, when you're watching. And did you have anything you wanted to plug really quick?
Sure. Well, I was talking about Moonflower last week, and right now I've done the thing where a lot of writers are celebrating. I managed to write 3 chapters in a row last night, and I'm currently on the search for beta readers. So if you go to my Twitter at NolanDean27, you can read the synopsis for Moonflower, and if it interests you, send me a DM and I'll send you a form to fill out so I can just keep in touch with all of it. And once I get the book to a sendable degree, hopefully I'm going to have it done maybe by the end of November or by Christmas. I'll start sending those out and I'll start getting some feedback so I can make it better because I've been wanting to write a book for years and I really feel like Moonflower is the one that I want to get out first. So that's all I got.
Awesome. Definitely hit up Nolan at NolanD27 on Twitter. Uh, Tom and I have been doing some Let's Plays for one of my favorite video games of all time, Animal Crossing. Those will be out by the time, or they'll start coming out at least by the time this airs. So please, if you get a chance to check those out, they are Odd Shape Plays, Animal Crossing with me and Tom. And as always, Odd Shape Panel, Odd Shape Channel, check it all out. You can find me all over that. And we will see you guys again soon for the 11th Doctor moments.